Hello, Teresa. Your colors in the painted color wheel look quite vibrant. The only problem is violet and its neighbors, and those are notoriously difficult. Generally, when you get the color that you have here, the problem has to do with your red. You need a red that leans in the direction of violet, such as quinacridone. Now, about the presentation, if you pay close attention to the directions, you're asked to paint on separate paper and then to trim each piece so that it fits neatly, puzzle-like, into the template. Also, application of paint is a consideration. Now, with regard to your digital color wheel, I believe this is the very same version that I critiqued earlier in a draft review. Well, hi, Destiny. I like the look of this. It has a newfangled um, digital appearance to it. I observe that you've got cyan straight across from red, which is indicating to me that you have a sense that the digital color wheel is different and distinct from the painted one. I do observe that your colors are not all fully saturated. For example, that large shape of green is not a fully saturated color, and I want you to go back and take a look at my instructions and learn how fully saturated colors can be found in the top right corner of the color picker. Um, Also, because these color shapes have a kind of gradient applied to them, it's hard to sample, although I can be sure that that green and also the navy blue color and probably some of your violets are not fully saturated. Joseph, this painted color wheel looks very good, a neat presentation. Now let's see if I can come up with some pointers. Well, I'd say with your yellow, orange, and yellow green, start with yellow and add just a little bit of the other color at a time so you have better control. And with the blue green, maybe you want to ensure that there's more influence of blue there. And then violets are always a challenge. Make sure you have the right red and use a tiny touch of white to reveal the hue with any colors, including ultramarine in the recipe. Maybe could there be more interval between your oranges? Now, the digital color wheel looks great. Excellent RGB values. Everything's fully saturated. Maybe more use of the grid. I see a couple of shapes that aren't perfectly in line. And I would encourage you to create your own shapes versus using the pre-made ones. Hi, Sam. I want to point out that this is an exceedingly neat presentation with your painted color wheel. And, well, I think just about all the things I said to Joseph apply here to you and your color wheel, too. Now, let's see. The digital color wheel, this is a nice layout. And actually, Teresa's and Joseph's were laid out in a nice manner, too. Just the arrangement of the primaries and the other colors between. Your RGB values are good. Now, I want to suggest that since this is a symmetrical arrangement, you go all the way. For example, if I look at the tiny circles to the left of the red at top, I notice that they touch the larger shape, and that's not true with all the sets of tiny circles. So use guides and the grid. You can even use a temporary line on a later throw away to help you to orient things in a radiating fashion, for example. Lena, wow, your colors on the painted color wheel are quite good. Gee, there's very little I could say. Maybe adjust the interval between red, violet, and red. Now, let's see. The digital color wheel. Well, at first I thought this doesn't really make a wheel, but after looking at it, I see it does, and I like the sense of invention that you've employed here. This is a creative idea. I can't find all the primaries and secondaries, but one little matter is that the intermediate colors are not all fully saturated. Well, Scott, hey, these colors with your painted color wheel look quite good, and I also observe the very neat presentation. If there was a problem, it might be with your violet. Perhaps a tiny touch of white could reveal the hue. One other consideration is that some paints are student grade, meaning they're inferior in quality, and there's just so much you can do with them. I always like to choose an artist grade paint. All right, now with a digital color wheel, I am finding your primaries and secondaries very readily. You've made them larger. And actually something I didn't mention to Lena is that it is possible to emphasize the primaries and secondaries as all her color shapes are same size. Um, Interestingly, this design suggests a wreath that people would put on their door, which is usually a warm and friendly idea. However, there's a slight menace here. This reminds me a little bit of the martial arts throwing stars, too, because it's so prickly looking, made of stars, almost like a cactus. Hi, Andrew. The stated color wheel is presented in a very neat fashion. Thank you for the time and care you've invested in it. Things look quite good. I wonder if you may have a little color shift going on here. If you note, there's a post in the discussion about balancing the color in a global manner. I would say that your green is looking a little yellow green and your blue green looks almost like it'd be the better green. Violet is dull, and I think maybe what I was saying to Scott might be affecting you. It might be the quality of your brand of paint. Looking at the digital color wheel, I observed that you have changed this, and it really does look stronger. One little suggestion might be, could the triangular shapes all have their points pointing inward? Hi, Luana. From what I can see of your painted wheel, things look good. For future, you might like to make the image larger within the file composition. Uh, you know, uh, I'm looking at your yellow orange and yellow green, and earlier I was talking to Joseph about the matter of starting with yellow when making such colors. I always start with a lighter color. Now, it seems that you did that with the yellow-orange. However, the yellow-green doesn't show enough influence of yellow. Look at your violets, will you? They really look good. I'm wondering why your red has an orangey quality to it. That should be a straight red, like a stop sign red. And to make that, I would mix um, the cadmium red light with the quinacridone, if you have those very colors. Now, looking at your digital color wheel, well, it looks to me like you are pretty close with the right RGB values and fully saturated colors. The only matter is that this resolution is poor, and it's hard to use the color picker to get a good read. Always you want your resolution to look good, so I'd say go back and take a look at the bottom portion of that announcement about computers and image preparation to be sure you've got things right. One other little note is, wouldn't it be nice if that gradient in center was centered within the star? Well, hi, Wes. I can see some time and care went into the assembly of this painted color wheel. Um, However, it does appear that you struggled with color mixing and paint application. For the best paint application, I'd say um, put 2 coats of paint on, rather thin, and allow the first to dry before the second goes on. Now, with your secondaries, I'd say they're too similar to their neighbors. In other words, there's too little interval between green and blue-green and too much interval between blue and blue-green. Now, let's take a look at the digital color wheel. This is a beautiful design. It is really eye-catching. However, I do note that you're not showing us the digital complements. In other words, in the realm of digital color, red should be opposite cyan, and yellow should be opposite blue, and so on. I do see the RGB values we're looking for. One other little note is it appears you may have outlined each petal with something like the paintbrush. I'm not sure. I see the line wobbles just a touch. And I'd like to suggest that you could use Stroke in Illustrator and then, stack your shapes and rotate them to get the same effect with a really clean stroke if that's what you want.